and namaste. Is there sound?
So this week it was only Smita-Shvatana, right? Tomorrow, no class, right? Yes, I saw. Thanks. Did I ask you? No, you didn't. You must have. Had Mr. Yonkers and mantras last night too. One of them was to Torah, but it was a Sanskrit. Okay. A noisy thing. Okay.
Oh, still. These are all of it?
Mm-hmm.
All of them?
Yes. We weren't able to finish that.
Only so many? The other one was bigger, I think.
Yes, but
Yeah.
these, each one of them have
It's
2-3
longer.
episodes
Oh,
of long.
very, very long ones,
Yes.
yeah.
Episodes of lectures.
It's early? Adobe not loud enough. Why? Why is it not loud enough? Ah, the volume is only halfway here, that's why.
That's for the speaker.
Oh, no, that will do, but this one we have to raise the volume. Here. How do you do that?
First I would go up to the
No,
green
no,
microphone
this
and make
one.
sure that the snowballs connected.
That also will do.
The elbow, the arrow.
So this one.
Select.
Select microphone.
Okay, it is the
Blues.
correct one.
Yeah, it's the correct one. Is it better now? The sound is better now or not? Adjust microphone volume. That's okay. And then the other one here, adjust speaker volume. That's also okay. It should be all right now. If it is not, go to live stream. Okay, now it is fine. Thank God. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinnavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Very nice. This Upanishad is. Okay. Apanipado javano grahita.
Apanipado javano grahita.
Pashyatya chakshushrunotya karnaha.
Pashyatya chakshushrunotya karnaha.
Pashyatya chakshushrunotya karnaha.
Pashyatya chakshushrunotya karnaha.
Savetti vedyam.
Saveti vedyam.
Na cha tasyasti veta.
Na cha tasyasti veda.
Tamahurargyam purusham mahantam.
Tamahuragyam purusham mahantam.
Yeah, something. They say that today that is causing some. What did they call it? Glare. There we go. Thank you. So, tamahurargyam purusham mahantam. We have seen that. Next one. Anoraniyan mahato mahiyan.
Anoraniyan mahato mahiyan.
Atma guhayam nihitosya jantoho.
Atma guhayam nihitosya jantoho.
Tamakratuh pashyati vita-shokaha.
Tamakratum pashyati vita-shokaha.
Not akratum, akratuhu. Tamakratuh pashyati vita-shokaha.
Tamakratuh pashyati vita-shokaha.
Dhatuh prasadan mahimanamisham.
Dhatuh prasadan mahimanamisham.
Yeah, so smallest means what? When you say something is smallest, what does that mean? That nothing can be smaller than that, correct? Doesn't that imply? When you say, when you say such and such a thing is the smallest, that means there should be nothing smaller than that, correct? And when you say this is the biggest, same way, in the same manner, there should be nothing bigger than that, otherwise why superlative? Bigger means yes, there is something piche and aage. In the front and behind, you can say. What is that? Comparative. But when you use the superlative, then smallest means smaller. Anoho aniyan. Smallest means aniyan means smallest. So then you cannot say something is smaller than the smallest. Then the word smallest has no meaning. It is uselessly used. That's funny. Uselessly used. Yeah. It is used, but it is useless because, when you say smallest, it implies there is nothing smaller than that. And same thing when you say biggest, it implies there is nothing bigger than that. So smaller than the smallest means what? It has to be infinite. Because straight away we know that what is being talked about is the infinite. Because of the impossibility of anything being smaller than the smallest, other than that which lends its presence to everything without being any one thing. That same thing, bigger than the biggest. Smaller than the smallest means you look for something microscopic, and microscopic means what? This scope, that scope, microscope, bigger, the big instruments to see the smallest thing. And here is something smaller than the smallest. Is it a newly discovered baby amoeba? No. No. It is you. Why? That's why it is immediately followed by bigger than the biggest. Meaning that which is free of size, which is ananta, limitless. Because it is free of size, it is limitless. And because it is limitless, it can simultaneously be smaller than the smallest and bigger than the biggest. In fact, the EST is this Brahman. In both the small and the big, that which gives a certain superlative thing is Brahman. So, Anoho Aniyan, then what? Mahato Mahiyan, bigger than the biggest. What? Atma. Then of course, Kidhar hai? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Asya Jantoho. Very interesting use of the word. Jantu means, like a insignificant critter. Jantu, like a creature. You don't call your child, this is my creature. The child will take revenge on you after it grows to be teenage. Okay? You don't say, this is my creature, I have two creatures. You don't say that. Right? Creature is used for something lowly. Right? But yet this is very interesting because this is addressed to human beings. The so-called creatures are not reading this. Are the creatures reading this? No. It's not that centipede is putting on its glasses, after removing its shoes, because this is now studying Vedanta. So before coming into the classroom, it removed all its shoes. So it had to come 1 hour early to do that. So many feet, so many shoes. And now it is coming and it is sitting perched on what is that, asana, and then it is studying the Veda with a pair of reading glasses, and when it encounters the word Jantu, it nods. Yeah, it is being talked to me. No. So it's funny, it means creature, kind of a lowly creature, insignificant. It has its own little creepy, crawly life, and then it is stepped on by a size 12 shoe. That is the end of its creepy, crawly life. That was the highlight of its life, how it was murdered, and then what? And then another creepy, crawly life. And then that was, cut up by a little child, and then what happened? Like that, it's an insignificant life. Insignificant from the standpoint of what? From the standpoint of this fellow, the one who is proud, the one who says, you creature, you lowly creature, the one who is naming the Jantu as Jantu, that one thinks, I am great, me. And that fellow now is called Jantu, namely the reader of this passage. Atma asya jantoho. Oh, that's all I am, yes. Asya jantu, this creature. Of this creature, because why? Because the person behaves as though they are insignificant. That is what brings them to Vedanta. The person behaves insignificantly. Person says, I am no good. I am an idiot. I am a donkey. Even donkeys are better because donkeys don't feel guilt when they kick. And I am small. Jantu. Jantu is always small. The fellows who feel smallness is called Jantu here. I am small. I am an idiot. Yes, Jantu, we know, says the Upanishad. We know that even though you look so big, you feel so like a Jantu inside. Inside you are besotted by overwhelmed by what? Creepy crawly feelings. Feelings that you want to get rid of, feelings that are not going anywhere, feelings that are besieging you. These feelings of insignificance, smallness, inadequacy, insecurity, insufficiency. No wonder the Upanishad just says, forget it, they are not a human being. Because they are behaving like, something that is 5 inches long. Like a small worm, because it's always afraid something will come and stamp on me, something will come. So this is in short, this is how the person is doing. So Atma asya jantoho nihitam guhayam. But you are since we are using the term creature, let us go all the way. You are the host. Host of what? This Atma, which is Nihitam. We saw last time Guhayam. What is Guhayam? Cave. Yeah, we saw the whole meaning of the word cave. And so, why is the Buddhi called cave? Because it is unaware of its own glory. It has this Jantu Buddhi. That's what it is. It's got this survival, what is that called? Survival instinct. All about survival, all about making do, all about trying to, feel a sense of power and control. But as soon as that sense of control is seen and internalized, it is gone, because you encounter, as soon as you see this control, as soon as you say, ha, I am in charge, and you say, yay, suddenly some catch in the back, which you could not control. So really speaking, the truth of this lowly sensing fellow, as good as a Jantu, is Atma, this all Purusha, this Bhagavan, this infinite, all knowledge, all limitless Atma that is what this Atma is, inhabiting as though what? This dank, ignorance, cave of ignorance, Buddhi, which is shrouded in ignorance. Then what? Tam akratuhu pashyati. Akratu means ritual. Kratu actually means kamya karma. Rituals that are done for the sake of getting something. What is that something? Yeah, like what? For example, what is kamya karma? What kind of results do you expect in kamya karma? Yeah, heaven, and then children, prosperity, money, and power. And there is all this Vashikarna ritual. Vashikarna means let everyone listen to me. Let everyone listen to me. Why should people listen to you? You listen to yourself, that's enough. You listen to your Buddhi. Be guided by that, because that is Bhagavan. We are sitting inside, we know that. Why should everyone listen to you? No, everybody should listen. This is some Indian problem actually. In India, everyone, the parents keep calling me, say many times, and they say, my child is not listening to me. I said, how old is your child? Only 52. And this is our local Indian problem, because this is the way the parents feel in power, because somebody is listening. This listening thing is something I don't understand. Nobody listens to me. I need to be famous. I need to be powerful. So all these things. So now the Veda knew that these kinds of idiotic, desires people have, and gave one general ritual for that. What is that? How to bring people under my spell ritual. Very famous it is. And people do this. Unfortunately, the effect wears off. After a while, for a while everybody, as you are walking, they bow, they bend down, and then, as you are talking, they all are quiet and respectfully listen. But after a while, it wears off. Why? Karma phala. Phala means Phalgutaya liyate iti phalam. Why is it called? Why are results of action called fruit of action? Because it rots faster than a fruit. That's why. So then after a while people stop listening. People are no longer under your spell. Then what do you have to do? Do the same thing again. So as long as these desires are there, not that the desires are, it's possible to not have the desires. No, the desires will be there. But I learn to sublate them. I learn to manage them. I am not managed by them. I am not hijacked by them. That is what is akratu. Akratuhu means the one that has given up agency in trying to what? Control their likes and dislikes. The one who has given up all agency in trying to live a ragadvesha life or fulfill their ragadveshas. They have given up all the agency completely. So such a person is called akratuhu. So for such a person, what use is the ritual? No use. Like the person who, what use is the well when the whole village is under water? This was, we saw in the, where did we see that? Of what use is the well?
No, Gita.
Bhagavad Gita. When the whole village is under water, you cannot say this is my father's ancestral well. The bystander will say, well, what is the use? No use. Because that kind of a thing is not there. That orientation is not there. It's like the bald man walking in the shampoo aisle, in the supermarket. Complete vairagya. Does not look to the left, does not look to the right, does not see, it's everything is very interesting because all our food, this is something I have noticed, all our food, the food that we eat is becoming more and more artificial, correct? It's got all kinds of additives, it's got this, it's got that, it's got all the things that it shouldn't have. Whereas the things that we put on the face and the hair, it's all fruit shampoo and vegetable shampoo, toothpaste is also made of vegetable juice and this kind of a thing. It's all upside down. But nonetheless, all these nice fruit shampoo is there and some other things are there, all these, what is that? To make the hair stand up, you put something? Mouse. No, there's another word. Gel. So, so this gel and this mousse, all these things are fully stacked up from top to bottom. And the bald man is let loose in this aisle. Not even one single hair, And this person goes through it with total dispassion. Neither looks to the left, nor looks to the right, nor is interested in reading the label of what is new, is not interested even if something is 75% off, not at all interested. Akratu, like that. With akratu means with total vairagya, total dispassion. He moves beyond, he is beyond that, atita, he is beyond this particular aisle. But then what? The next aisle catches him because this much is the example. But imagine that if that person is bald to all desires, in that sense, is managed, has been able to suspend the desires and not need to follow them, and doesn't have that insecurity because of which the desires are there. The insecurity alone breeds the desires. So self-ignorance gives rise to insecurity, insecurity gives rise to desire, desire gives rise to action, action gives rise to fruit of action, and fruit of action gives rise to what? Punarjanma. What is that? Come back again and again and again and again. I am back, you can say, and they will, and people around will say, so soon we did not even miss you, like that. So this is the whole chakra, is the life cycle of this jantu. These small desires make this jantu, but really speaking, those desires being endless, the desires come as a result of insecurity. And the insecurity is because of self-ignorance. So here akratuhu means there is no insecurity. Why? The first is the desires are not putting a pressure on me to fulfill them. Why? Because the raga dveshas are under check. And then there is no insecurity. Why? Because there is self-knowledge. And since there is no insecurity, the desires are not doing a number on the person. Correct? And then what? So since there is no insecurity, since the desires are being managed, there is no motivation to act and do this, that or the other. Whenever the person acts, it will be on behalf of to help others, not really for their own purposes. So such a person is called akratuhu. Akratuhu doesn't mean somebody who says, I hate rituals. No, that's not the person. Therefore I am akratuhu because I hate rituals. No. Akratuhu is the one who is able to see beyond the ritual. Why? Because the ritual is not going to make me secure, or getting something because of the ritual is also not going to make me secure. That much is understood. So akratuhu tam pashyati. Kam pashyati? Atmanam pashyati. Pashyati means, janati, understands, knows, sees not as an object, sees as the truth of oneself. A person sees oneself as Bhagavan. And then what? Some akratuhu pashyati. Who is this akratuhu? Vitashoko bhavati. Vitashoko bhutva pashyati. Whichever way you can say. Akratuhu bhutva, akratur bhutva vitashoko bhavati pashyati. Pashyan vitashoko bhavati, or vitashoko bhutva, pashyati we can say. Vitashokaha means beyond sorrow, beyond the free of sorrow. Vigataha shokaha yasmat vitashokaha. Vitashokaha pashyati. So you can take it that after becoming akratu, after managing the desires, the person sees the oneself as Atma and then becomes Vitashoka, free of sorrow, or becomes free of sorrow as a result of free of desire, and then sees the Atma or understands the Atma. Both ways you can take. It's not we don't need to split the hairs here. Yeah, both ways it segues very beautifully. So tam akratuhu pashyati. Kam pashyati? Atmanam pashyati. Mahimanam atmanaha mahimanam pashyati. Sees the glory of oneself, himself, herself. Mahima means glory. Sees the glory of this Atma, which here to up till now, who had confused the Atma to be as finite as the body, as finite as the senses, as finite as as finite as the thoughts, and as finite as the prana, suddenly understands that while all these are nothing but sustained by Atma, Atma is none of them. Pashyati. This is the glory of the self that the person assimilates and understands. How pashyati? Dhatu prasadat pashyati. Prasada means prasida, happiness. Yeah, prasada, very important word. Dhatu prasadat pashyati. Vitashoka, we'll take it later. So dhatu here is, there are two meanings. One is, Bhagavan. Dhatu, why is dhatu Bhagavan? Dhatu means material. What is the ultimate material? Bhagavan. The fabric of this universe is Bhagavan. So then other derivation, dhata, vidhata. Dhata means sustainer. So Bhagavan, one derivation. And then what? Dhatu, another derivation, is the materials used to make this body. What are they? Ajja, marrow, asthi, bones, and then mamsa, flesh, bones, marrow, blood, rakta, and then we have endocrine glands and something like that. One more is there, I've forgotten what it is, skin perhaps. So all these are the dhatus. Yeah, sapta dhatavaha they are called. 7 dhatus are there that keep this body going. That is what is called dhatu. Now, so therefore, if you take the meaning of Ishvara, dhata, dhatru prasadat. Dhata, dhatarau, dhatarah. So dhatu prasadat. Here, if you look at the word dhatuhu, there is a visarga. Dhatuhu, 6th case of dhata. Dhatuhu, there is a visarga, a kind of a colon looking thing, which looks like a colon after the thing. So dhatuhu, 6th case of dhata. So Ishvara's, Bhagavan's prasada. Yeah, what is Bhagavan's prasada? Bhagavan's prasada is the grace. Is the grace to come to this teaching. Ishvara anugrahadeva pumsam advaita vasana. Elsewhere it is said that for the human being, pumsam, Ishvara anugrahadeva, because of Bhagavan's grace alone, advaita vasana. Vasana here doesn't mean previous impressions, the desire. Vasana here means simply desire. Desire for what? Advaita. Desire for Vedanta comes from Bhagavan's grace. But it is my desire. What has Bhagavan to do with it? Kamosmi Bharatarshabha. Bhagavan says, I am in the form of desire. That does not go against dharma. Does Vedanta go against dharma or not? Vedanta is that which will not come to you without dharma, okay? Yeah. So the question of going against dharma does not arise. So therefore, this vasana, this desire comes from Bhagavan's grace. And and so that means that the people who are listening to this are having grace of Bhagavan, whereas people who will never listen to this talk are not having grace of Bhagavan. Then what does Bhagavan become? Bhagavan becomes a partial fellow. Nairgrinha dosha. That is called the fallacy where Bhagavan is seen as, no, you can't have this. I'm only giving these chocolates of Vedanta chocolates to Advaita bombs. Yeah, these chocolates to my chosen few people. No, you cannot have it. This is not the Bhagavan we know. This is not the Bhagavan unfolded by Vedanta. So therefore, what is this that is happening here? So Ishvara's grace means that which is available for all, like even the Ganga flowing in the backyard. There is Ganga flowing. But what do you have to do? You have to take a pot and fill it up. Otherwise you cannot say, how come? You cannot look out of your window. You are living in Rishikesh or Haridwar. Ganga is flowing in your backyard. And you are sitting at home and crying that Ganga is not coming to you. And you are jealous of the people who are washing their clothes and taking a dip in the Ganga right outside your balcony or the window. What to tell that person? Can you say Ganga is partial? No. If you go to her, she will bless you with her coolness, her water, everything. You have to go with a pot, or you have to go there and then fill her up, correct? So the grace of the Bhagavan is like the ever perennial flowing river. wholly available and there. So I have to go to it. But why not it come to me? It's already there. You have to go to it, because even if it comes to you, you will not recognize it. So Bhagavan says, why bother? Let me just be and let them come to me. It is already there. It has already come to you. Then why don't I recognize it? That's because of your own Atma Anugraha not being there. So to recognize this, that this grace is freely available. And what is the grace here in the Vedanta situation? To not be demurred by distractions and stop attending the classes. This is the big grace we need. Sometimes people say, in Vedanta we don't need punya, so I'm going to stop going to temple. Please don't stop. I'm going to stop praying, because what's the use? Because, in Vedanta I have to become akratu anyway. So if I have to become akratu, why should I say, Shuklam Baradharam Vishnum? Why should I say all that? Because all that is asking for things, Namaste, Sharade Devi. Vidyam Buddhim Dehi Me. Give me buddhi, give me vidya, give me this, give me that. Why should I pray for all that? Because I'm destined to be, my destiny is to be akratu. So then let me drop all this. No, that's why the dhatu prasada comes in the last line. Dhatuhu prasadat. Because the same verse in a slightly different form occurs in the Kathopanishad. There it is not dhatuhu prasadat. It is dhatu prasadat. That visarga is not there. So that's why here we have to bring in the meaning of the word dhata, dhatuhu of the dhata, the grace of the dhata. Meaning that there is no Vedanta without recognizing Bhagavan. The recognition of Bhagavan is incumbent. It's a necessary and sufficient condition for this knowledge to take place. Why? Because you are encountering the world, right? And what is there in the world? Everything that is inimical, right? Everything that I cannot control, everything that is beyond my ability to understand, and everything that I cannot accept, because what I want is completely contrary to what the world is. And so therefore what? Therefore I have to come to a place of acceptance. How? I can't settle accounts with everything. Why? Because the Jagat, like Bhagavan, is infinite. Jagat is Bhagavan, Bhagavan is not the Jagat. So infinitely you can't keep making peace with each and every item in the Jagat, each and every person, each and every situation, each and everything. You will go mad. So therefore, if one thing is everything, you go to that one thing. That's using the buddhi, right? This is what baby Ganesha did. Baby Ganesha had, has a brother, Kartikeya. So Kartikeya was, had a peacock as the mascot. Peacock stands for vanity. There itself you have it. So his baby Kartikeya, and Ganesha had a mouse, not moose, that was earlier. So this is really mouse. And then mouse stands for the restless mind, over which he has control. That is the thing. And he rides restlessness. He's overpowering the restlessness. That's the idea. Then Shiva and Parvati were sitting in Kailasa, in the mountain, and they had one mango, one nice fat juicy celestial mango. Mango is not something you can divide. Chocolate you can divide. When we were children we used to measure the bar and then make a mark exactly. If it had to be cut in 3 pieces or 4 pieces, you have to measure and cut. And even the powder that would fall, each one would have a certain stake over it. Very, very serious business. But then the mango is not, it's to be enjoyed. It cannot be cut into half because this big fat seed is in the middle. How are you going to cut it into half? It's never fair. So the parents decided that they will put a little contest. And then whoever finishes the contest soon among both these boys will get the phala. So then what happened? Kartikeya set off on his peacock, dashed off. Why? Because the contest was who is going to circle the whole universe 3 times and come back fast. And Kartikeya dashed off on his peacock, and as he was dashing off, he pointed to the Ganesha's mouse and said, ha 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 ha. And Ganesha also looked and said, okay, something we have to do here. So he said to his mother and father, you are the parents of the universe. In fact, the whole universe has come out of you, is sustained by you, goes back to you. So I'm going to encircle you 3 times. And then I will consider that I have encircled the entire universe. And then what happened? He circled them, even whether he went on the mouse or whether he waddled around them, because he has a big belly, big belly Ganesha. Slowly he circled. But of course he was given the mango. The parents were very happy. They've got a baby Vedantin, Yeah, very nice. And then Kartikeya, rushes back. He's sweating, he's upset. The peacock is in a bad mood, because poor peacock did not expect to be flown all over the universe 3 times, that too, and he's just out of breath, and he's in for a shock, because as he enters, he just sees some few peels of the mango. Ganesha is also in peals of laughter. He doesn't find this situation appealing at all. He says, this is awful. You are partial. He accuses his parents. This fatso, this fatty, don't lead me to believe that this fatty sitting on top of that small mouse which would have become immediately fossilized, as soon as he sat on it, and you think that he has gone 3 rounds and come back. You have lied to me, and you favored him. The parents say, no, we did not favor him. Why? Because we are the universe, and he recognized that. That was the thing. Of course, Kartikeya, to finish the story, Kartikeya got very, very angry. He was very angry. And then he went and sat in a place called Parani. There is a place in Tamil Nadu. And if you want to see, so that's why he's bathed with all cool banana and everything, to propitiate this baby anger. He says, I'm going away, I don't want anything. Forget the mango, I don't want anything, So that is the story. It's just a story, It's not that he got angry or this one got the mango or something. It illustrates something. And what does it illustrate? It illustrates that instead of reconciling the whole universe like this elder fellow did, the younger fellow was very bright. And what did he do? He reconciled with the source of the universe. That is what the whole thing is. So this is what, reconciling, settling accounts with Ishvara, this is what it means. That this recognition should be there, that even though I am that, right now I, in this particular small body, from the standpoint of the Jantu, this Jantu has to recognize Dhatu, Dhatuhu, Dhatri. Yeah. The Jantu has to recognize the Dhatri, Dhata. That which sustains the Jantu, that which has put the Jantu on this path. And that which resolves the Jantu too. By sending a size 12 shoe, that's how the Jantu is resolved. Immediately gone, finished. And so this Jantu, from the standpoint of this insignificance, the insecurity, the smallness, I have to see that there is something in charge. And what is that which is in charge? That which is in charge is blocking what I want in life. And let it block. So what? You can say that of other desires, but you cannot say that of Vedanta. Let it block. Correct? So when you really encounter something that you want, that's when the person becomes a devotee. Why? Because they cannot get it any other way. They have, not that they have not tried, they have tried and failed and failed and failed and failed and failed and failed. When? In several lifetimes they have failed. So then they know. Sometimes accidentally one becomes a devotee, because they know that they cannot get what they want and they have tried it. And sometimes they become a devotee because they have got it and then they have lost it. Sometimes, people lose their parents early on in life. They themselves were small children, the parents are gone and at the mercy of, useless relatives who just want the property and they don't take care of the child properly. So somehow they've had to raise themselves. Difficulty, Sometimes the mother dies away at a young age. Very difficult. And so these difficulties are the potential to bring out the devotee in oneself. Sometimes the father is not there, mother is not there. So like this loss is there. Or sometimes mother, father is there, but they end up losing a child. All these things happen. And so because of this, either because they are unable to get what they want, or because they have got what they want and then they have known this big sense of loss. That is what makes it, is like the fertile ground, kshetra, for discovering oneself, as the devotee, for discovering the kshetrajna. Because even this inner kshetra is managed, my psychological order is also managed by the one who knows this field, this kshetrajna. And so therefore what do? I have to reconcile with Bhagavan. I have to do this. I have to settle accounts. And this settling account business is very important. Otherwise one is going through life lost. Actually one is grieving the parents one never really had, even though one's parents might be alive. Because those parents are not the parents I wanted. Now why not? Because they were not unconditionally approving of me. Why weren't they unconditionally approving of you? Because they were not unconditionally approving of themselves. How can they be approving of you? They were themselves riddled with fears, insecurities, and inconsistencies. Mother was inconsistent, father was unavailable. Like this, there is a kind of alienation, a notion of alienation. It's not that one is alienated from the whole, but there is this notion of alienation. The alienation is there for want of recognition of the interconnectedness of the whole universe. The alienation therefore is not real. It is neither unreal nor real. It is there, it has a certain empirical validity, a validity right here, right now. And so this alienation has to be reconciled by searching for the mother and the father of the universe and encircling the mother and the father of the universe like baby Ganesha did. He circled them 3 times and did one big namaskar. And then what did he get? The fruit of knowledge. Yeah, that is what the whole thing is. So here too, I have to, the fruit of knowledge here, the celestial mango is moksha. Why is mango moksha? Because both start with an M and both are tasty. That's all. So, see that to get the mango is not away from me in space or time. In fact, I am still the holder of this moksha. But for want of recognition, I don't see its value. That is the problem. for want of recognition. So when I encircle that which is limitless, look at that. Encircle how? That it is never away from my awareness. So you see, you have done Vashikaranam of Bhagavan. It's never away from my awareness. This Bhagavan, this Dhatru, this Dhata is never away from my awareness. And what is my awareness? Limitless. What is Bhagavan? Limitless. Bhagavan is limitless awareness. I am limitless awareness. I am limitlessly aware of that limitless existence, of that limitless knowledge. I am limitlessly aware. I am conscious of consciousness. In fact, I am nothing but consciousness. That limitless consciousness I am, has to happen with this awareness. And this awareness I have to make peace with this ragadveshas. That is what the whole thing is. Akratuhu and this dhatru prasada, this ragadvesha comes in the way. That ragadvesha causes alienation. This whole bundle of ragadveshas, that we bring into this universe. Right now everything is bundle language. You try to get a phone, they say, what all will they give? If you want a phone line, yeah, they'll give internet, they'll give one more thing. TV. I don't know what's the connection, but somehow it's all the same cable. TV, hot water, coffee, internet, outer net, inner net, everything. The word of operation, the operative word is net. You are in the Indrajala, in this big net of Maya. That is what it is. So everything is bundled up. And so the Ragadvesha, they got this idea of bundles from how they saw the Ragadveshas in the mind. Because the Ragadveshas are also bundled up. Why do you want this thing? Because I want that thing also. And then that thing is connected with this thing, so I want both of them. So both of them is enough? No. Then after that I want the third thing. And then so it's like a chain reaction. It's a whole bundle. It's just, if you look at one thing, then a series of other things start to come. It's actually quite scary. Yeah, it's very, very scary. It's like it's like those cell phones. When the cell phones started to come out, when in 90s I think they came. So it was bigger than the cordless phone you have now. And then what? And everybody got one, those who could afford it, because they had this idea that they would be stranded in a car somewhere in the dark on a highway, and then the car would be stopped, and then how to walk somewhere, because in those days you have to, even the highways had telephones after a certain now they have all removed all that. So before the big highways used to have telephones after every so often, every so many miles. So then you have to walk to the next emergency phone box and then take out the phone in the dark, you have to walk. And so this way I can just call from the safety of my car. That is why everybody got into this cell phone. And now what? Now it makes coffee and it gives you a haircut, and then it finds your soulmate, and and then it does your nails for you, and it finds you a restaurant and takes you there also. I mean, you can't, and it is used in every situation except when you are stranded in the car, because what is the likelihood of that happening? So you see how that one raga for a cell phone, cell phone has now become hell phone. This is all it is. It has become hellish because of our dependence on it. And then all the time, even the people come to class, of course here we don't allow that, but then, when I go to some new places, just for my entertainment, what I see is that, lots of people will be there, like let's say 7,500 people are there, and then what? Piche, in the back, some few people would like to sit in the back. Even if they come early, they like to sit in the back. I wondered why. Now I know, because the organizer would have announced, please keep the cell phones on silent, turn off, or keep it on silent. Silent means it keeps giving shocks. Little shocks it keeps giving. And then, then the people sitting in the back will be suddenly, they're not looking, at the class, they're not looking at me, they're just looking at something down. I didn't know what it was. I also said, I'm not going to keep quiet, I'm also going to sit up and see what they, what they are looking at. So they were peering, I also peered over them and saw that they are looking something quickly, and then and again some noise is coming, like a shock noise, and then again they are looking. This is the dependency. So Ishvara Anugraha can bring you to the class, but then what? It cannot let you concentrate. Meaning what? More Anugraha is needed. So the grace has to be tapped in, and you cannot tap into the grace without the recognition of Bhagavan. The recognition of Bhagavan as the whole, what? The Niyanta, the controller of everything, including this body, mind, sense complex. That is what has to happen. And so the Ragadveshas, when they come out, this is a big deterrent. That is why the best prayer is, let there be more of me, more of Ishvara in me and less of me. That is what the whole me means. It's a bundle of Ragadveshas walking. That's all it is. There is no other me. Me means all my problems. Me means all my, ignorance and its offshoots, wrong thinking and partial problems, partial vision, subjectivity. This is all what the problems are. These are the problems. And so therefore, less of me means less Ragadvesha, less subjectivity, less issues, less unconscious reigning over the situation. And sometimes, you don't see the person at all. You see a bunch of Ragadveshas with appendages, hands and legs walking. And if you want to see that, you have to go to the mall. And you have to see how people rush towards things and how people are just absent. There is no person there. It's just Ragadveshas walking towards the object of desire, and Ragadveshas with hands and legs, at automatons, like that they'll be walking. And this is what the whole thing is. And so therefore, sometimes we see that the person doesn't come. The Ragadveshas come to see you because they are very angry about something and they want to confront you. So what is happening there? The Ragadveshas have come to have a conversation. The person is somewhere left at home, very far away. And so therefore, we have to see this and recognize and allow the Ragadveshas to be suspended. And for that, the grace is needed. Yes. Because until the Raga, this is a catch-22. Until the Ragadveshas go down, the recognition of Ishvara will not happen. And until the recognition of Ishvara happens, the Ragadveshas will not go down. So where to start with? Start with the recognition of Ishvara, the awareness. And how to have this awareness? In and through the Ragadveshas, you see your own helplessness and ask for help. That's all that is there. Because wherever there is a helpless person, wherever there is helplessness, there has to be a source that helps. Otherwise, what's the use of, being helpless without help? So helplessness is there, but also the source of all help is there. That awareness has to come. And then only, that kind of a prayerfulness, that kind of a prayer that comes is actually, it's the same entry point as someone becoming a devotee because they have not got something, or someone becoming a devotee because they have lost something. But here you become a devotee. Why? Because you want to lose these Ragadveshas in a hurry. That's why you become a devotee. Here it's much more voluntary, but it doesn't matter. Even in the other two situations, you can Ishvarize the situation. You can be very grateful for whatever has brought the person. The person can be very grateful for whatever it is that has brought me into this situation. I'm very thankful that whether it's a loss or a gain or a fear or whatever it is that brought me to this situation of saying, you are everything and I am nothing in this situation. I'm actually completely helpless. Please help me. Whatever brought me to that situation is actually a great situation. That itself is grace. That itself is the presence of grace. And when I learn to see the grace even in the loss, that is where the maturity comes for gaining this teaching. Because otherwise the maturity is not there. Because what happens is when I lose something, I will say, why me? Why did this happen to me? Why not the neighbor? But the ability to see that there is, and this very Upanishad is going to say in the next chapter, that why did he create the universe? Why did he resolve the universe? Only to resolve it, he created it. This is what Bhagavan is. Why did the Bhagavan create and then resolve? And the Upanishad says, for inscrutable purposes, meaning we don't know. We don't know why this is there. We just see the universe projected, and we see all the finite things spread out infinitely, in this universe, and all the finite things are resolving every day, and I don't care. Somewhere something is happening, I don't care. But as soon as something finite connected to me goes away, I start to care. This is the whole thing. This is the whole problem. And so therefore, I learned to be in a situation of being a recipient, a glad recipient. Prasada here. Prasada here means prasada buddhya. This prasada buddhi is there. And this dhatuhu prasada means the prasada of the giver. Dhata here is sustainer. And when the sustainer resolves a name and form or resolves something unto itself, that means what? I learn to have a certain vision adjustment and see that whole thing differently. And when I see that differently, I am blessed because I am no longer under the spell of ragadveshas. I get what is called chitta shuddhi, therefore, through prayer. And if prayer gives chitta shuddhi, prayerfulness gives even more chitta shuddhi and chitta naishchalyam. Chitta shuddhi means inner harmony, inner cleansing. The inner instrument, the mind is free of ragadveshas. Chitta naishchalyam means I am focused, relaxed and focused, and not away from, the target at hand. So naishchalyam means I am not swayed by all the things that come in the way and easily distracted. So therefore, this is what dhatuhu prasada. So this dhatu prasada means I have to grow into a person that recognizing Ishvara as the order. And that is just part A. Part B is relating to Bhagavan. That's the second thing. Recognizing Ishvara as the order, as the very order, all the orders that pervade this universe. And then what? Relate to this order from the standpoint of the one who is embodied, relating to the one who is all bodies. All knowledge, all bodies. Whose body is what we saw, the sky, the whole directions are the ears, the sun and the moon are the eyes. This is the kind of the body, this gigantic body which is the manifest universe is Bhagavan's body, and this one who is embodied relates to that body, and that is like a tree recognizing its relationship to the forest. Then it becomes secure. Not that the tree is not related to the forest, the tree is related to the forest. But if the tree had a human mind and if it felt alienated, all it had to do was meditate upon the forest and it will understand that it has a place. It has a place, it has a purpose, it has everything. So like this, the dhatuhu prasadat means dhatru, the one who is Bhagavan, gives me this, ability to look past my ragadveshas and see this order, this universe as benign, not as inimical out to get me. That is number one. Number two, is that because of relying on Bhagavan and praying to Bhagavan, I become more compassionate towards myself. That is one of the prasada of prayer. You start praying and you see that you'll soon become more forgiving of yourself, more compassionate, more calm, more centered. It happens. And so then I have the ability to help myself, to being compassionate when I don't understand. When I don't understand. That's why this is repeated. The Upanishad is teaching repeatedly. But then, before, what would happen? If I didn't understand, I would be very upset. Now, because of the prayerfulness, I allow myself a few times to say, it's okay if I don't understand, I'll get it in the next class. I'll get it next time, not to worry. So this is Atma Anugraha. Then there is two more Anugrahas, Shastra Anugraha and Guru Anugraha, for which we need next Tuesday. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari. Any questions? Yeah, you're right. Only 6 videos, and then 6 DVDs and 15 videos.